Greetings and welcome back to another Modeling on the Fly with 3ds Max. So yeah, let's just jump right in. In the previous video we were working on this cannon area down here, and there's some things going on that I kind of want to clean up a little bit. So let's see here. We got editable polys everywhere. Let's take all these guys and we're going to slide them in like so, because we kind of scaled everything down but we never fixed that. So we need to fix that. We got some color issues we need to clean up, but I'll deal with that later. I'm not too stressed about this. Here, this is an interesting little problem. Let's press F4. And I want these guys, aha, those are my friends. Let's see here. Let's get everybody. So let's go to Elements. Oh, cool. I pretty much got them all. And that's pretty much right. Now, let's do smoothing groups on these, just because I see some crazy amounts of faceting that I don't really want to see. Oh, you know, that'll do. It's a little more, well, okay, maybe not. Let's try 20 degrees and see what that comes out like. That's probably a lot better. 30 degrees? There, that's what I was actually shooting for, is some rounding there on that beveled edge. Okay, good. So that takes care of that. And let's... F4 to get out of there, and I think that's going to work out just fine. Now, let's see. This creature here needs the same treatment, so I'm just cleaning up some things so I don't have to come back and try to remember them again, because there's just so much going on here. I will probably forget. Alright, good. Now, I want to start working on these cannons in earnest, but I don't want to sit here and build them out of piece-by-piece, little tiny finalized parts. In fact, I may end up getting into this green thing that I built earlier. I'm not sure yet. But what I think I want to do here is just drop in some simple shapes that will represent the bulk of the cannon itself, and then we will model, make cuts, make edits, make changes, do whatever we need to do to just turn those into the finalized hardware, so to speak. So let's just get some basic, we'll call them placeholders for now, just to kind of represent the cannons and what they look like. Now, let's see here. I'm going to jump over to the back view. And I'm going to assume this view just won't be all that helpful in terms of the image plane, which is probably a pretty safe bet. But let's create a cylinder, and I'll just tack it as close to the middle of that as I can. Give it some height. Go back to perspective. And move this up here where we can work with it. Now that's probably a little bit big for what we're trying to build. Maybe not. It's hard to say because we still need to add to the thickness of these guys. But still, it looks like it's a tiny little bit over the top. So I'm going to pull down the radius of this a little bit. That's probably a lot closer to what we're actually aiming for. And we can slide it forward a little bit. We've got, well, we'll have some work to do on it, obviously. But a couple of things. One, both of these objects really kind of need to go forward. I'm building this really far back on the track. Let's move these in view space. So maybe to right about here. Maybe even further. Now I'm just going to get this blue cylinder alone. Let's increase its height. And then it's going to need to taper and go out past the end, but I won't worry about that right now. Let's just shift drag out a copy of it. I'll give this some other color just to differentiate. Let's bring down the radius a bit. Increase the height a little bit. And that's just, of course, going to be the end of the gun stick itself. Now, something I want to know. If we take our side view here and I switch that over to Direct 3D, which will take a moment to process, can we really see anything in the background image plane? Yeah, we can see a little bit. Now, in this image, it looks like these guns have really been slid back because they do retract underneath, so I'm not really going to use that as much of an indicator. We'll just go ahead and leave it like this for starters. And because I'd like to be able to use my undos in the future, I'll go ahead and turn that back off. Okay, so we've got a couple of basic shapes down that we can go ahead and start working on. Now, some of this stuff, we can get an idea of what it looks like. Other parts are kind of vague, really. And what we'll probably end up having to do, not only vague, but they change depending on which one you're looking at. We've noticed that a lot throughout this modeling project. It really depends on who put together the model, which one you want to decide is right. And then on top of all that, it's really a lot about how much modeling you want to do on it, because a lot of these, as you jump from one model to the other, it's just all about how much tiny little bits of greebling you want to put on there. With things like cannons, it doesn't take a lot of imagination to say, well, maybe the design of the cannon has changed, or, whatever. But it's also one of those little tiny details that probably nobody's going to notice. So just do what you want with it. Now, we already started to build this piece. And the problem I have with what's going on here is that, in the end, this will not be a completed cylinder. And that does make things a little bit complicated, maybe not too terribly complicated, but here, let's see. If I come over to my picture, and we can still kind of see what's going on here. What I've built is this piece, and as we can see, this is only a partial shell that kind of wraps around. So I'm going to try something real quick. Let's minimize this. Let's grab this face. Actually, we have both sides. That's actually exactly what I want. So good. Let's do an inset. By maybe even that much will do just fine. So we'll click OK. And then, I'm thinking, yeah, let's just go ahead and nuke that. So I've got a little bit of thickness. Now, I'd like to know about how far around this goes, because that's not perfectly vertical. It's kind of getting there. It may be closer to it than I think, but let's see, we got a little bit of wrap around there. And that's not so helpful. I mean, we could probably just kind of fudge it. We got a little bit of an angle there. So let's say we wanted to go to about here. Maybe only down to there, you think? Now let's try it. So let's see. Let's grab edges. Yeah, let's see here. Let me try this. Let's grab this edge, and we'll ring that. Now, do we have any other really nice side pictures of that cannon? I think we don't have much that's really all that detailed. And nothing that goes up very high. So we'll probably end up just having to kind of make it up as we go, which is, of course, just fine. I just want to know before I really start slamming stuff together. Yep, we're switching over into make it up mode. Yeah, it kind of tucks up into some stuff there. So we could actually pull the track piece down a little bit, maybe with some greebling and whatnot. Take these edges and bring them down to kind of surround everything a little bit later. But we're going to start off there with a ring. Let's go to about maybe here and do another ring. Convert those to faces and delete. And then we can grab elements and make sure I have elements, and let's grab this element and just nuke that. So now that's all kind of by itself. Now I want to try something. Don't know if it's going to do what I want it to, but sometimes you just have to guess. Let me try the old shell modifier. I actually remember when this came out in Max. Long time ago. Alright, so let's see. Outer amount, inner amount. And we'll just give that some thickness with shell. And I think that's going to work out just fine for us. So let's right click, convert that to an editable poly. And there we are. Awesome. Now we've still got that funny little kind of squared off hex boltish area around the outside. I'm not going to stress that at the moment. Let me show you what I'd like to build next. Because we really do have a cylindrical shape that needs to fit inside, kind of like a disc or a few discs. So we've got this that sits kind of inside here. So I want to build this area. And here's how I'm going to do it. Let's see. And there, now his pivot is right there in a nice location. Very nice location, actually. Let's pull all this stuff back toward transparency. And let's jump over to the left view. And I don't really want to do that. I just want to move. So we'll zoom in here. Now let's grab our create cylinder. And I'm just going to click right about the dead center of that shape. well, where the pivot was anyway. We'll have to kind of modify the position, obviously. I'm just going to kind of fit that inside. Perfection isn't necessarily critical in this case. Now, boom, hit P. Let's slide this over. Ooh, that really didn't do what I wanted it to at all. And slide this over. Okay, looking good. Now, let's see. I'm getting maybe 3 separate levels of pure detail that I need to be worried about here. So we could just start there. Yeah, let me just try that. If you don't understand what I mean when I say that, you'll know here in just a moment. Let me pull this over to about here, just something to give me the overall thickness of the part, which is going to fit just about inside here, but maybe not really. Let's just say it does fit. So we'll go from here, and then I'll increase my height all the way to the other side. And let's frame up on that. And I'm just going to kind of eyeball center that. Looks pretty good. Now I'm going to give this height segments of 3 to start us out. Let's go ahead and convert that over to an editable poly. Now let's grab edges. I want this edge and this edge. We want to loop those and then chamfer them with nowhere near that much chamfer. So just a little bit like so. Let's grab an edge here and an edge here, and we will ring those. Boom. And let's do an extrusion. I'm not going to worry about a bevel. This is just so tiny. We're just going for some differentiation. Click OK. So now that's broken up into 3 separate areas. Now let's grab edges again. I want this guy. We want to ring that, convert that over to faces, and then I want to scale all those apart just in Y and Z. So like so, make the whole thing a little, well, I'd like it to be a little thicker. It looks like it's kind of going a little, ooh, you know what? It took me a second to figure out what just happened there. When I did my extrusion, we were going by group, and I just always assume things are going to go by local normal, which I shouldn't ever assume that. So there we are. Now let's get edges, get you, and then ring. And we could probably just scale these. We don't really need faces that bad. So pull that out. Now we can convert that over if we really wanted to, and we could do a bevel by local normal. So just a little bit out in height and a little bit in right there. Actually, let's not do that yet. I'm going to take that back, so cancel that out. And also scale this back down just a little. I like the different elevation, but that was just a little too severe. So there we go. Okay, now we've got some plating and some interesting things taking place on either side here. So what I'm going to do is just kind of break this up into some segments that are doing some things. So let's see here. Let's grab faces. Come here. Come back here, you. Wow. Raycasting selection in Max is just the coolest thing, isn't it? All right, so boom. I really don't understand what their algorithm is. I mean, if somebody would like to send me a white paper explaining how when you click on a shape you get some random magical stuff that's hidden behind it, I would read the heck out of that white paper, let me tell you. All right, now, boom, we got all this stuff. So let's do this. Let's grab you and you and all this stuff up to about here where it's no longer visible and no longer necessarily pertinent. And let's extrude. We'll go out with that, and then click OK, and then we'll immediately do a bevel. And that's a nice little bevel. We'll just do that much. Now, I'm going to grab all these edges. It already knew which ones I wanted, which is fantastic. Let's do several connections here. And let's see. I'm not going to worry about the picture anymore. I'm just totally making this up as I go. So let's just try 2, and then that'll be OK. And then let's chamfer that and click OK. Let's grab edges here. Let's undo until it gives me that back. So I want this edge, and this edge, and this edge. And I want, actually, you know what? Not that guy. Let's just get the two outer guys for a moment. And let's ring those. And then we'll convert over to faces. And we'll do an extrusion and make this an outward extrusion. So that goes out a little bit. Click OK. Do a bevel. Now, in here, let's go to Edges, get U, do a ring, connect that a few times, click OK. Let's chamfer that just a tiny little bit. Click OK. Now, back to faces, and we want U and U and U and U. Not U, but these few in here. And let's do a bevel. And we'll go a little bit higher. Actually, no, let's not go very high at all. Click OK. And we'll get all these guys in here, and we'll do an extrusion. Goes out pretty far. And then do a bevel on top of that, and click OK. So now that has a lot of different things going on with it. And then we'll grab these guys. Let's do an inset. Not that far, just a little bit. And we'll click OK. Extrude inward. And click OK. So cool. So now that's just got a little bit more of an interesting feel for what's taking place there. Now I'm going to grab either side over here, and we're going to inset these. Like so. And you know, yeah, okay. I'm still there. I'm still hip and with it. I know what I'm doing. Let's pull this in a little more. Click OK. I want to do an extrusion. So go out positively. Click OK, and then let's do a bevel. We'll go positive and then positive, so it's actually going out a little bit. Click OK. Do an extrusion. Not quite so high. Click OK, and then another bevel, this time going inward, and that's OK too. Let's see, now if I grab U, I should be able to ring, and let's just do it on both sides just for the fun of it, and ring, and connect. Actually, let's just connect once, and then let's see if that... This should work. I say that sometimes and I end up biting my words, but this should work. I should be able to just scale these out with edge constraint on. That seems to be fantastic. So let's go ahead and click OK there and get out of edge constraint. Excellent. So we're going to do a chamfer on those by a little more than that. All right. And an edge. And an edge. Oop, not an edge. And a ring. Convert this over to faces. Let's do a bevel, and we want this to go in negatively and by just a little bit, and that'll be fine. We don't really need to go any further than that. Okay, awesome. That's working so far. Okay, now a few things that we need to do to clean this up, and I'm going to jump out of wireframe mode by hitting F4. Let's get U and U, and let's drop our material on, and then shade everything up so we can see what it looks like. Alright, cool. Also, I need to adjust smoothing groups on this piece, because that's just looking bad. So we'll hit 5, blam, and 45 might do it, but that's probably a little extreme, so let's try 30 degrees. Even that's a little bit too low, so let's try 20. I think that'll work. Now, let's see. A few things that I want to do here to make this just look a little bit nicer overall. And the big thing is I want to cheat and I want to make this as easy on myself as I possibly can. Let's see here. Let's do a box. And oh, I guess I need auto grid on. So let's make sure that that doesn't go anywhere. We want auto grid. Let's draw a little box right here. All right. Now a couple of things. Let's press F4. I want to be able to see the wires. And let's get out of here. We're going to take our length segments, and we'll pull those up. And that's probably enough to kind of get us started. Get my move tool out. And let's see, let me grab my align. And let's cancel that actually. We want you by yourself. Come on. There we are. And align to you. Pivot to pivot, but not in all 3 dimensions. Let's just do this in Y only. So that looks nice. Click OK. Let's increase our length so that sticks right into the central hub. And now, let's see here. We could probably get away with just 1 height segment, I'm thinking. Or length segment, So let's just do 1 here. Or 1 extra, so it'd be 1 plus 1. Now let's convert this over. Let me grab edges. I want this guy. We're going to loop. And we'll pull that down. Hit 4 to grab faces. Did I hit 5 instead? Because really all I wanted was this guy. Now I'm going to hit Z to frame up on that. Just pull this out to about here. Grab edges again. We'll tuck this guy down a little. Now, if I grab this guy and loop, well, we get kind of up to where I want to go. So let me just start here with a ring. I don't want this guy. So let's hit Q so I don't accidentally bump something. And I need this, and this, and this. We'll go ahead and grab that, and this, and this. We can go ahead and grab these two. You know, let's just loop that. That's probably good. Okay, now let's chamfer all this. Now also, I'm thinking that this could be widened up from what I originally designed here, so let's thicken that up a little bit. Now, I'm counting probably, I think, 8 of these. So you can find a good shot that shows them so we can get an idea of how many there are around. 1, 2, 3 to make 15 degrees, so yeah, this should be 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, should be a total of 8. So let's see here. If well, what we can probably do. Yeah, that should probably work. Let's try this. Let's go ahead and get out of here, and then let's switch our mode to pick, and we'll go in cylinder 21 space, and then use reference coordinate center. Did that? It looks like that did what I wanted it to. It's just the control is so far away you couldn't really tell. So cylinder, reference coordinate system. Now we should be rotating around, and it looks like we are, which is good. Now I'm going to shift drag this out to 45 degrees and make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 copies. And now they go all the way around. Excellent. Now let's get all of these. And you know what? Let's do this. Let me just grab one of them. Just one, please. Anyone? I'm telling you, ray casting. It's a beautiful thing. Excellent. All right, and let's see. We want to attach. Cool. And let me drop on a symmetry modifier. Bump. Now it's probably already going in the axis I want it to. No, it's not. Not at all. So let's go Y, no. Z, yes. But we need to move that mirror. So let's slide the mirror this way until these guys just sit right on the outer surface. Yeah, I think that'll work great. Now the only other thing I want to do is grab, let's see here. If I come over and I grab a cylinder, we create a little cylinder right here. Give that a little bit of height. It doesn't need all these height segments. That's way too many height segments. It probably doesn't need to have 36 total sides either. We can pull that way down. Say to 16. We could probably go a lot lower than that too, for what I'm doing. There we go. Now let's convert this and grab you, and then let's do a bevel, and that's a crazy bevel. Crazy bevel. We don't need crazy bevels. All right, looks good. Now let's pull back. And let's see here, the next thing, we want to set its reference coordinate system for rotate to cylinder 21, which it already is, and that's fantastic. Now, if we do the same thing, we rotate this around to 45 degrees, create 7 copies. Now let's use attach, and we'll put all these together into one great big piece like so. Then, if I was to take this and rotate it half that, I can't hit it right in the half, can we? That's, well, we probably don't need to anyway. See, I noticed when I was looking at some of these pictures, especially this nice one underneath. So you got these little tiny bolts here. So there's probably more than just 8 of those, but I think 8's going to do it. And then, just because we can, let's do a couple things. First off, grab U. Once again, let's drop on the symmetry modifier. In Z. Grab the mirror. Slide back over. Just sink those in, just in case somebody happened to see that. They will be there. And the only other thing I wanted to do, and this was more of a personal preference than for any rational reason, is at least grab this face, even if we don't do it on the other side, just this face. And let's do an inset. To about here. And then a bevel, and that's fine bevel with me. And we'll just leave it like that. So there we go. So now, on the next thing we need to do is create the kind of funny looking shell shape. And I say funny looking, well, because it is. So it's this piece right here. And if we flip around, there's at least one fairly good shot of it. That is not a good shot. It's way too much in shadow. This is a pretty good shot. Because what we've got here is something that's mostly rounded on the inside. Has this funny little extension here, which flares, actually. And then it's all squared out, almost like a hexagon, but not really, on the outside. So, if for people who know the AT-AT Walker, I think they might be looking for that, just because it is such a weird design, but I don't think it really necessarily needs to be super hardcore, perfect, precise to get the job done. So let's see here. To make this, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Well, I think what I'm going to do is grab some faces off this guy. So let's get, actually, hang on. Let's start off with edges, and I'll make them faces. I want you, you, and U. And I want to turn that into a ring and convert that over to faces. Excellent. Okay, looking good. Let's just shift drag that over. And we'll make this into its own object. Let's get out of the editable poly mode here. Kind of do the same thing again, except what I want to do is just get these two, ring and convert, and then we'll thin this out because it doesn't need to be quite so big. All right. Now, I'm going to try something. I don't know how well it's going to work, but I'm going to try it anyway. Oh wow, yeah, that grabbed a little more than I wanted it to. So let's do this. Let's grab faces by angle, 45, delete, delete, and delete, and delete, and delete. So totally clean this shape out. All I want is the razor thin thing that we're working on here, and nothing else. All right, now I have no idea if this is what I'm about to do is actually going to work the way I think it should. Just because I think something should do a thing generally means it's going to do something else entirely, unfortunately. But, let's see. If I move these guys locally, what do we get? Well, we get some really interesting flying off in random directions there. Well, here's something I might be able to do. Let's switch these over to cylinder 24 space. Use the reference coordinate center, and then see if I can just scale these guys like so. And that seems to be working. That's really just about all I wanted to do. Okay. Now, we need some flattened areas here. Now, this, to me, this seems like the kind of thing that's going to require a lot of back and forth. And the way I want to handle it... Well, let's do this first. Yeah, that's a bit of a problem. Let me grab... hang on. I don't know if this is going to do exactly the way I think it's going to... Here, let me convert these over. Cool, and there's those vertices. Now, let's do a weld, and boom, weld all those together. Click OK. Good, that got everyone. Let's grab faces, and by angle should be fine, so I can just get all these, and I want to flatten them in Z. So I just kind of got rid of that bevel, is really all I accomplished there. Alright, now let's switch back over to faces, or these faces in particular. So, boom, and I want to turn this off. Let's grab every, I don't know, 3 faces? 4 faces? And we're going to have to do this probably a lot if this works out the way I think it will. Let's make these planar. Grab these 4, and we'll make these planar. Grab these 4, and we'll make them planar. And grab these guys, we'll make them planar. Now, we got to just kind of keep jamming with this because they're steadily going to get closer to being truly planar with one another. So, I'm afraid to see what would happen if I tried to click the edge constraint button, but I'll try it once, you know. So those kind of stretch out. That looks a little funny, but it got the shape that I was looking for. Ooh, that really didn't. So let's just not worry about the edge constraints. But as you do this a few times, what you're going to discover is that these steadily become closer and closer and closer to being planar with one another. Now, if you wanted to get downright technical, it's probable that they're never going to make it 100% perfect planar if you could, you know, put a laser on them, that sort of thing. But I think they're going to get so close that nobody's going to be able to tell. And that's all I'm going for. So we've got nice cylindrical shape on the inside. We've got the squarish shape on the outside. We can take the whole thing and we can scale it down a little bit. Ooh, I want the element, please. Scale the whole thing down a little bit so it kind of fits on the inside. I mean, that looks to me kind of like what it's doing. If we look over here, it kind of fits just inside. So that inner ring is a little bit larger. Also, it looks like we could take this edge and this edge, get our move tool out, and these could just be pulled out a little bit. Grab vertices, vertices please, and this can be flared a little because we need to do that anyway. And we can use this to help it. Now back to edges, I want this guy and I want to loop it, and let's do a really nice chamfer here to create some rounding. In fact, I'd like to put a couple of segments in here. Okay. And let me go back to vertices. That seems to be working. Let's get out of sub-object mode. Pull that in. I'm going to go to my elements, and we're going to scale this whole thing in just a little bit more. Let's get out of editable poly mode, and we'll drop a shell on it. And it has the same settings as the last one, which is okay by me, but we need to, it looks like we need to get vertices, and we need to pull all these in because they got a little bit knocked out of whack. And then we'll slide all this out a little. Now, I'm going to convert this all back over to a regular editable poly. Let's put a symmetry modifier on it. Let's go in Z, and let's see, make sure we grab that mirror and fit that over to the other side, and there we go. So now if we pull back, get out of sub-object mode altogether, make a nice big selection. I'm not going to worry about these two basic shapes here for our cannon, but let's go ahead and drop on our material. Press F4, and I think we've got something that's starting to really work there. So there's the basic part to kind of like our cannon, where it's going to be mounting to the underside of the ship, or the head area for our AT-AT walker. That is going to wrap things up for this video. I wanted to give a big thank you, a shout out to all of our member sponsors who make these free videos possible, and I'll catch you all later on the next episode of Modeling on the Fly with 3ds Max.